Hey, this is Faye, and today we're gonna talk about the stars. They're up there. You are welcome. What? That didn't do it for you? Well, alright, if I have to. The Astrologian is the third healer in Final Fantasy XIV, and it has a ton of lore to it. Like the job itself and the ether-conductive garbs that the Astrologians wear, the lore can be a bit overwhelming and needlessly complex at times. I didn't know half of this when I started out the research for this video, and I will absolutely 100% mess something up here. But well, let's give it a go. Here's me compiling it for you so that you don't have to. Astrology, as we know it, was founded 3 centuries ago by Adenel the Younger, who studied the stars to learn to predict the movements of the Dravanian horde from the movements of the heavens. It had existed for thousands of years in the region, but it wasn't until Adenel found that the movements of the star... What? Oh, that's the Ishgardian branch of astrology. That not it? That ain't the class? No? Okay. Okay, let's try that again. Astrology is a fine-tuned art, which the wife of King Theodoric, also known as the Mad King, kind of a bad PR move there, used every day in every little decision that she made. From deciding what garb to wear that day, to deciding which of her handmaidens had betrayed her trust and must subsequently become a head shorter. They used star globes, but I mean, considering how they entirely failed to predict the uprising and the subsequent execution. What? Huh? Oh, that's the Alamegan school, but that still ain't the class? No? Are you sure? Okay, who's the third healer then? Oh! So, as I was saying, the Chilean school of Astromancy is the healing job that we got with the expansion Heavensward. You unlock it in Ishgard while being on a level 50 plus class, but it will start at level 30. They never did this again, where they gated a class behind story progress like this, and I think that's a pretty smart move, because when you finally get into Ishgard and you finally unlock a class that you've been looking forward to, you will be looking at a lot of leveling to be done before you can do current content on that class. Now, I call it a healer, but it is technically more of a blesser than a healer, as the basic gist of it is that you attune to the constellations in the sky, and then you use your cards to draw upon their ether to use their blessings. Now, attuning to the heavens, that is a big-ass battery of ether if I ever saw one. Or I guess I should say batteries, as there are in fact 7 heavens, just as there are 7 hells. Now that is a big topic, and we're just gonna skirt it here because we already have too much to go through as it stands. The start of astrology in Chilean terms is credited to the Chilean sage Lufon, who dedicated 2 decades of his life in the early 6th astral era, from 210 to 230, to write the 5 ages, in an effort to, and I quote, accelerate mankind's return to intellectual normalcy following the most recent calamity-induced fall of civilization. Basically, following an umbral era, there is this Stargate period where people are just too scared and too scattered and too concerned with just making it till tomorrow to really be very civilized and knowledgeable. This work was a compilation and dissertation on man's attempt to read their own fates, and what he wanted to do was to sort fact from fiction and fable, weed out all of the superstitious bullshit, and only keep the stuff that was actually working and was founded in legitimate arcane theory. What he found, however, was that a lot of this arcane wisdom was actually pretty damn watertight, and it worked. And this entirely shifted his focus for his research, and in efforts to reconstruct and adapt these principles, he accidentally Astromancy, cards and all. Whoops. This branch has apparently been attempted spread to Eosia as far back as the previous astral era's 6th century, and even then you're struggling at present times in the Astrologian's quest to make people take you seriously. I guess Eosia just really isn't ready for this art of magic. Maybe it's because it's so damn hard to master and only taught a couple of places all over the world, mostly Old Chilean, which is a bit of a commute every day for any bright Eosian student who might wish to learn it. Serendipitously, however, there was also an Athenaeum in Eosia in the Chilean colony near Idleshire, back before that was abandoned some 15 years ago, but yeah, that's gone now. Lots of goblins though, although now apparently the Ishgardians are, begrudgingly and under protest, taking up the art. The learning process is long and tedious, and apprentices can be tasked with transcribing old tomes on astrological fundamentals in the hopes that they will eventually drill in the knowledge needed to understand these fundamentals. It will be a long while before they are allowed to fling spells, let alone touch a deck of cards. The divining deck is known as the deck of 60, and the cards are known as arcana. There are 6 major arcana cards, and then there are 6 suits, each containing 6 numbered cards from 1 to 6, for a total of 60 cards. You will see that this number is gonna go along quite well with 12, and indeed it is important that the 12 can be seen in the craft, referring to it as the traces of the gods. This is where it might get a little bit headachy, but hold on. There are 6 elemental houses: divine duplicity, class triplicity, house modality and polarity, dignity versus detriment. Just like in tarot readings, you can draw the same damn card in different ways, it seems, and depending on the draw, the placement and the polarity, it may mean something different. When you understand the position of the celestial bodies within the 6 elemental houses and their relations to the major and minor arcana in the deck of 60, you can start tapping this big ass battery up there. Complex shit be complex. I have used the words attuned a lot, and I will continue to use it, and I think it is easiest to think of it like how you attune to an aetherite in the city, or as Leviah so aptly puts it, ether is the building blocks of all that surrounds us, meaning that everything is connected. Someone closely attuned with that ether can, in a sense, link themselves with others, feeling their joy, feeling their pain. Scholars of the soul call this empathy. Crystal gazers and card readers call it the Wheel of Fortune. We astrologians call it the collective unconsciousness. There are, as mentioned, 7 heavens, 1 for each of the elements and 1 that determines polarity. This is why we have 6 different constellations that we deal with, and they revolve around a pole star. To attune to one of these, you must be able to see it. It should be in the middle of the sky on a clear night, on the highest and brightest point. This is supposedly where the flow of the ether is the strongest in relation to Heidelin, and you put yourself in the path of that connection to attune to it and get to know it real well. Now, when you draw a card relating to this constellation, you will essentially be allowed to borrow the power that you have attuned to grant whatever blessing is connecting to it. The heavens are, the first heaven, the heaven of earth, associated with the bowl and the world tree, as well as the matron Nulfica and Alpheg the keeper. The second heaven is the heaven of fire, and it's associated with the balance and governed by the prosperous traders Nald and Fald, as well as kept under the divine judgment of Asima. The third heaven is the heaven of lightning, associated with the spire and Byragot the builder and Valga the destroyer. The fourth heaven is the heaven of wind, and it is associated with the arrow and Ossian the wanderer and Limlane the navigator. The fifth heaven is the heaven of water, associated with the ewer. This is a scholarly heaven where all magics come from and all magics return, and this is the goddess Nemea and Thaliak. The sixth heaven is the heaven of ice, and it is associated with the spear, and instantly we think of the fury Halone, but also the lover Menfina. You do not attune or attempt to attune to the 7th heaven, as you will be opening that final gate when you die. And the quest givers talk about even attempting to attune to the pole star as being sheer madness that will spell your doom. And then we look at our skills and yeah, let's just leave that there. The goal of Astromancy has ever been to guide this extraplanetary ether from the heavens to the vicinity of the caster, sort of drawing it into reach for the caster to use for crafting spells. You can be in 2 different sects when you do this, which is like 2 different stances. Diurnal, which draws on the sun and the diurnal stars and represents the self, expression and the active. And Nocturnal sect, which is ruled by the 2 moons and the nocturnal stars. The moon and the stars represents the unconscious and the passive, and even though we now know this fake moon for what it is, Astrologians of Eld did not, and they used this to represent the uncontrollable, which it represents today even when it's shining in its absence. Drawing on the anxiety for the unknown and uncontrollable apparently quickens the senses and adds protection, also known as damage mitigation. So one way of reading this is that this shield here might as well just be you reacting swifter to avoid damage, thus mitigating it. It may also be a straight up shield, that is debatable, but I kinda like the idea of fight or flight angst magic. Astromancy School draws upon the power outside of the individual, and some people throughout your quests are pretty damn concerned about this. This guy especially states that we should have learned from history, and the War of the Magi in particular, what happens when you borrow powers outside of your own body. However, as the counter-argument is made, the Chileans have used astromancy for over 1,200 some years, and they are still standing unscathed, right? Well, largely at least. Also, even the astromancers say, only a fool believes that she can manipulate the heavens. It is the heavens which manipulate us. We merely take cues from the hints they leave behind. So I mean, wielding this power is pretty much just consigning yourself to letting this power wield you. Fun times! How do you wield it though, or how do you pretend to wield it? By using a star globe, which is attuned to the current location of the stars, enabling you to channel the ether of the heavens into your body. This is essentially your battery, and the better attuned you are to the stars, the purer the connection is and the stronger you'll be able to cast your spells. What is borrowed here is just the unaspected ether that you can do whatever the hell you please with, to heal or to hurt. The blessings or the buffs that you give from the 6 major arcana cards and how you draw upon the 6 lower heavens, now this is determined by fate, or well, R&D at least, and it is not up for you to just decide willy-nilly. Can you cheat fate though? The short answer is no, but the longer answer is that you can negotiate with fate. If you draw a card that indicate an outcome where you feel like the heavens is just plain up messed up, you can shuffle that card right back into that deck, and not denying that it is there, but postponing it, saving that headache for another day, where it might not be so detrimental. In summary, the cards don't predict the future, rather the cards help shape the future or guide it, making it more attainable. And seeing how you have some measure of choice over which card you actually decide to use and which you just redraw, well, I guess an argument could be made that fate is at least somewhat in your own hand. Now, as for actual fortune telling using the cards, well, of course these heavy brick blocks of lore books have suggestions for that as well. The Encyclopedia Eorzea mentions 2 different types of fortune telling, and I have done my best to simplify it here, but both the Trinity and the Dawn Cross spreads are pretty complicated to explain at a glance. Links to the diagrams can be found in the description, and mistakes may have been made, your results may vary, and under no circumstances do we take on any liability for shitty fates that might have been invited using these methods of divination. So, the keynotes are: most cultures have or have had their own astrologians, people who attempt to predict or control fates by ways of the stars. But as far as I can tell, the Alamecan school was focused on scrying the truth and favorable outcomes, and the Ishgardians mostly to predict the future on one specific, but to the Ishgardians pretty important thing, namely where are the dragons and where they're gonna go next. The Chaldæans perfected astromancy by weeding fact from fiction and found out how to attune to the heavens. There are 7 heavens, 1 for each element, 2 gods representing each element, 1 card to represent each of those constellations relating to the element, and a 7th heaven just for good measures, and, well, polarity. There are 60 cards in the deck, 6 suits of 6 numbered 1 to 6, and 6 picture cards. These are your minor and major arcana. Some cards are governed by the sun and the stars in the day sky, and some are governed by the stars in the night sky and the moons, even though one of them ain't here no more. While the astromancers acknowledge that they are not manipulating the heavens, but the heavens are manipulating them, they still try to guide their readings so that they assist people in attaining their goals, giving fate a gentle, loving little nudge. Alright, I think that is about what we can cram into this video before your head explodes, or mine for that matter. Like with everything else, there's probably a lot more lore that I either overlooked or which simply didn't make it in here. But I hope at least this gave you a little bit of an overview, and that you will have a great time playing AST and asking the stars for a solid. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and have a really lovely day. Bye!